the day, because Times now has been relentlessly covering up when it comes to covering the stories and the ordeal of those Kashmiri Hindu families who have been over the last 3 decades still waiting for justice. Now this is another round of hope for them when the Supreme Court has now listed a hearing tomorrow, a PIL filed by NGO, We the Citizens, which has now sought for a direction to the centre and the Jammu and Kashmir administration to actually constitute a special investigation team, which is an SIT, to identify the said perpetrators of the genocide of Hindus in the valley from the years 1989 to 2003 and to prosecute them. The PIL also goes on to say further that it identifies all of those who were involved, aided and abetted the killings and to prosecute them as well. We're looking at several angles there when it comes to reopening the Kashmir files, because there has been an attempt, as we are looking at a certain cover-up, especially by those who were in power at the ruling dispensation in those times as well. They are equally culpable. Now, when it comes to the prosecutors, will they be able to meet and build a watertight case? And when it comes to also reopening those cases that has been left in the lurch for the last 30 plus years, will the victims still now get justice, because they have been waiting for justice for over 3 decades now?
I have prayed before the Honorable Supreme Court to constitute SIT for investigation of the genocide which took place in 1989-1990. And I must inform to the public through your channel that in fact the Daden state government did not take any action against the culprits, the perpetrators of the genocide. And therefore we have approached the Honorable Supreme Court after, you see, abolition of Article 370 and 35A. That is very important thing. And therefore we have approached the Honorable Supreme Court that constitute SIT.
Pradeep Datta is joining us live with more on this, because Pradeep, we have been talking about genocide after genocide. It's not one particular case. This has been the ongoing plight, what's been happening against the Kashmiri Hindus, because they are still suffering. Justice continues to evade and elude those families there who have been at the receiving end of the genocide happened in the valley in Kashmir in the 1990s and still even today.
Yes, you're absolutely right. The story of horror that started in 1989, it's continuing even today. Even today, we find that many of them have been targeted because of their faith. They are the worst victims of genocide and the worst victim of ethnic cleansing. What actually happened in 90s was that when gun culture came from across the border, they were able to tear apart composite culture. Kashmiriyat was dead. What is remaining there is only Shariat in Kashmir. That's what exactly is there. One has to understand. See, the zebra is not going to change their stripes, but snake is going to shed their skin. So this explains about the Islamist jihad. When you understand, because we have seen that their pattern has not changed. They will continue to target Hindus and Hindustanis. But yes, their tactics have changed. For sometimes with hybrid terrorism, sometimes with Fidayeen attacks, sometimes they go for grenade explosion, but their tactics keeps on changing. But if you talk about this particular community, they have suffered a lot for the last several years. They have been knocking at door for justice, but reason being that their ecosystem of terror was so strong that everybody had been trying to encourage and embolden terror-related elements. The terrorists were roaming scot-free. Nobody was hearing cases against them. We have seen what really happened in case of Yasin Malik. He was made an icon. He was treated like a Mahatma Gandhi, and he was made to address several seminars and conferences, and there he was giving sermons on peace, while as the victims were continuously suffering. So villains were treated like victims, and victims continue to suffer, because reason being that somewhere the mainstream political party leaders has also been encouraging and emboldening them. That's one of the reasons that when 3 days back our group editor Navika Kumar asked a very straight and pointed question to Farooq Abdullah, and Farooq Abdullah simply lost his cool. Reason being that because he knows that they will get exposed once the inquiry will be initiated, once the sit will be constituted, because they are equally culpable. You rightly said, because they were the one who had somewhere supported this ecosystem of terror, because it was his responsibility as the Chief Minister of State. He was the guardian. He was supposed to ensure that the migration do not take place, the Kashmiri Pandits' confidence doesn't get shattered, and he has to speak against the terrorism. But what he did, instead he fled to London. The same was the story with the Mahbub Muftis also. What they did, they came out with a rehabilitation policy for terrorists. They came out with an incentivization of terrorism. Like, for example, if a terrorist is going to surrender, and if he's going to surrender a gun, they will be given 15,000 rupees, 25,000 rupees. So it became a kind of a business. So you join terrorism, you give gun, take money, then again you get a recycled terrorists to join terror-related activities. Then there were roundtable conferences organized by the Congress Party. The roundtable conference was again for the rehabilitation of terrorists. Roundtable conferences were again to provide a healing test to elements who were supporting and sympathetic toward terrorism. But nobody was trying to provide a healing test towards these Kashmiri Pandits. That's one of the reasons that we here on Times Now exposed a story about the Nadimag files. For 102 hearings were listed in the court for 6 years, not a single witness was called. Now that's what actually the people are saying, that once the sit is constituted, all cases are reopened. One, that cases are to be investigated, who were behind those murders, who were behind those killing, role of Pakistan, role of bureaucrats and role of all those netas who supported them. Because somewhere they were the one who were supporting this thing. Because what happened in Nadimar case, initially one petition was filed in a court where they wanted the case to be shifted to Jammu region. All of a sudden, unconditionally, that petition is withdrawn. The question arises, at whose behest that petition was withdrawn. And when I spoke to these Nadimar victims also, they said that, see, nobody approached them all these years. When they went to meet Mehbooba Mufti at her residence, initially she did not give them audience. They had to wait for hours together. When finally she met, she said, we had been your neighbors in Kashmir, because Nadimar is just 7 kilometers away from Bijbihara, that is hometown of Mehbooba Mufti. Said that here we are not neighbors, so better you speak to your Kashmiri Pandit brothers and the Dogras here, don't ask us for anything. That was an attitude. So you feel very shocking and so you feel very sorry. And that in your own homeland, you are not being treated well. So now it has generated a kind of hope.
Does it
what
give
really
them
is going
fresh
to happen?
hope?
Let's
because
see.
what happened in 2017 in the Supreme Court, and there are many pending cases there. Because cases that they want a hearing to happen again, but somehow the delay has been continuing, whether it be it in the Jammu and Kashmir High Court as well. So what are the really expectations that are coming in from the Supreme Court? What really happened in 2017 when justice was snubbed? But what happens tomorrow when the Supreme Court once again will be taking up the matter?
I had been talking to many of them. They said, yes, the justice has been delayed, but still they are hopeful that maybe the justice will not be denied. Yes, they got a big jolt when in 2017 they have filed a petition that was filed by Roots in Kashmir that time. Also that time they wanted that all these cases to be reopened, but that time the Chief Justice said that it is too long a period, 27 years. But the argument given by the Kashmiri Pandits was, if you can investigate Subhash Chandra Bose's death, if you can investigate 1984 program, because that has been 33-year-old case. So it's it's a case pertaining to the humanity. It's about the people who have suffered a lot. So why not to investigate that matter? Now finally the hope has been generated, because Supreme Court is going to hear this matter tomorrow. And so all eyes will be glued on Apex Court. They will try to find out what really will be the outcome of that case. But yes, once the case is open, definitely many of the skeletons are going to tumble out of that cupboard, because those politicians had been hiding. That's one of the reasons that we found that many of them losing cool, and definitely it's going to be tough time for them. They are going to feel ants in their pants once these cases will be over.
Right.
Because
but
they know,
Pradeep, we want to hear it from the genocide victims themselves exactly now what they are hoping for, because justice has long eluded them. Let me go across to Vithal Chowdhary. He's a genocide victim and an activist joining us here on the broadcast. Vithal ji, thank you very much for taking out your time. Your hopes from the Supreme Court tomorrow as the matter will be taken up, because there has been a demand and a long-standing demand to reopen Kashmir files.
Absolutely. We have always had a hope on Indian judiciary. That is why we constantly filed PILs and wanted the reopening of the cases. But the irony of this country is that in 1948, Mahatma Gandhi was assassinated, and the Supreme Court still has a case, accepted a case about the reopening and who was the other person involved in the killing other than Nathuram Godse. But they forgot about 1990s. There was no suo motu cognizance by Indian judiciary, who take suo motu cognizance on the traffic jams at Gurgaon and anywhere else. That said, even the PIL that has been filed, we are very thankful to the people who took the initiative and filed the PIL for the justice to be given to us. But even if the Supreme Court of India accepts it, unfortunately, what is going to happen is, even if the files are open, you don't have any law which prosecutes genocide. So the expectation from the Supreme Court, the honorable judges, would be that they will recommend to the government of India to enact a law which criminalizes the genocide and prevents the future genocide. As regards to the people like, Farooq Abdullah and these are the people who are primarily responsible for a genocide, the Abdullah families, the Muftis, the Congress. And we hope whenever the law is passed, these people are equally put into, in front of the
But
law and
Vithal, is
tried
there
for
a
the law.
growing pressure, especially when it comes to, collection of evidences? Because there has been long-standing demand for justice, yes, but it's been 30 plus years. And that was when in 2017, when, the violence against the Kashmiri Hindu Pandits were not taken up in the Supreme Court, citing that it's been too long now, there would be hardly any evidence left.
But there has been evidences. We have people like Rajendra Premi and the kith and kin of Satish Tikku who have been filing the case, his brother of Satish Tikku, who have been going to court after court and talking about the genocide, talking about the killing of their people, and they have been rejected. The cases have been rejected with the court of law, and the problem has been.
Right. Vithal I'll just reconnect your line. I believe we also have Avinash ji joining us here. He's also a genocide victim, and Major General G.D. Bakshi sir is also with us here on the broadcast. Avinash ji, I want to know your point of view, especially when it comes to the matter being taken up in the Supreme Court once again tomorrow.
See, I believe it makes imperative sense for Supreme Court to establish a SIT. Considering while the victims may not be, most of the victims may not be there, they may have died over a period of time, or they died during genocide. But with the help of SIT, we can very clearly prove it across what had happened there, because the perpetrators are still alive and they are moving free. They are doing everything. They are treated as national heroes. Trust me, I think. A couple of years back, they were treated as national heroes as well. But unfortunately, as a community, we lost some of the very intellectual person, be it Teklal Tapluji, Nilkan Ganjuji, or let's say the Rawalpura shooting. Who did that? It was a system who was sleeping. And if system doesn't want to take this up, whose problem is it? I believe it's imperative to do with the system then. And now, if SIT is not formed, it is a direct, I believe it's a direct issue in terms of hiding something.
That's the point that we are raising. I mean, if I can go back to Pradeep on this, it's the basic acknowledgement of genocide, Pradeep. That needs to be done. That genocide, yes, it happened, and in a way, indirectly, we are seeing that traces of genocide still continuing even today.
Yes, that's what actually, Amita, we had been talking about, that how there had been an ecosystem that had been providing oxygen to terrorism, and they had been trying to encourage and embolden element. Just a few days back, we saw that how Mehbooba Mufti was just beating her chest for Yasin Malik, but she never ever spoke for Kashmiri Hindus. Right now, I am joined by one of the genocide victims, Vikas Rana. His father, Ashok Rana, a school principal, was killed by terrorists while he was on his way to school. His only fault was that he was providing education, and he was trying to spread education in that particular remote belt. Let me speak to him. How hopeful you are, because now the court is going to hear in this regard, because petition has been filed where they want SIT to be constituted.
See, this is a long, this demand, we have been demanding these things since long, that a SIT should be formed, because this side, what is very great of that time government officials, bureaucrats, even the courts. I'm trying to point out here, the courts also colluded in our genocide. Now this SIT has been formed. Now the petition has been filed to form an SIT. Court should allow this thing. There is no delayed for long. There is no way a case is too old not to be investigated. We have seen in 1984 rights case, we have seen Bhopal gas tragedy, we have seen even the Subhash Chandra Bose case has been allowed to be investigated. This is side, and this has happened for the first time in the modern day history of India. That
you think that once SIT will be constituted, you will be able to get justice? Because we have seen that how the things have been delayed, eyewitnesses were not called, their statements were not recorded, and now people are scattered all over the country, and many of them are putting in different parts of the world.
Sir, this is a very welcome step. This can be a first step. I am not saying that this will suffice, but this can be a first step towards addressing this genocide of ours. You are right that people are scattered, and there has been a lot of collusions, there has been a lot of even compromises. The witnesses have been compromised, as you saw in the recent Nandimar case, that The police itself is saying in courts that we cannot bring a terrorist, we don't have that much of security that we can bring terrorists,
And that's
Pakistani
the point
terrorists
of a
to the
possible
court.
delay that still is being witnessed by the victims even till date. General Bakshi sir, do you believe that it also further exposes the apathy of the previous and the past governments, sir, the collusion and the entire ecosystem, how they failed the Kashmiri Pandits?
Look, this is an unprecedented genocide and ethnic cleansing perpetrated in the last century and still continuing. Now, how the hell will it come to an end unless we first accept the fact that genocide took place and we take action? It is the most heinous crime against humanity. How can you just let it pass? How can you just let it say it is par for the course? For the sake of secularism, we must accept selective killing of a particular community, ethnic cleansing, driving them out of their ancestral homeland, not allowing them to settle back, and then you say we can't even talk of it. If somebody talks of it, he is provoking. What nonsense! I mean, this is outrageous. No country in the world has accepted this. People have been taken before the International Court of Justice in Yugoslavia, and down from their Slobodan Milosevic and the other prime ministers, people have been punished. They are behind bars. Here the perpetrators, those were the political masters who had sort of given the nod and wink. In this case, we are talking of the people who actually shot, killed, raped, murdered. They have not been brought to justice. Charges also have not been filed against them. And now we are being told, oh, it's too old, let's forget it. Let's carry on with life. If people were murdered, so what?
All right, sir. Right, sir. We are continuously tracking all of those updates and in fact standing by as well what really happens and transpires in the Supreme Court tomorrow. Thanking all of our guests joining us here on the broadcast and our reporters as well. Let's quickly move on to a live reaction we are getting as of now.